not available, and I would go with Daddy, and we always got to stop at White Castles on the way home, and that was my favorite thing to do, right? And Dad would laugh and joke and say, "We're not serving the guy in the back. He doesn't want anything."
Oh, that's a good story.
Yeah.
And if Jim Googe and Dad were still here, they would also tell the story of going to Indianapolis, and maybe they had to go, maybe it was a Tennessee run, and they
Is this the
stopped
out-of-state story?
Yes.
Where
Yes.
they
Stopped.
slept in the back?
Yes.
afterwards?
wherever to get gas, and they would spell each other, and one of them would just sleep in the back or whatever. This was on the way.
this is
There
in
was
the hearse.
nobody.
It's in the
Yeah,
hearse.
nobody.
Nobody's
They were going down to Tennessee for the pickup, and yeah.
And
And they take turns driving.
Yeah, and this was where the attendant would come out and
Yeah.
fill your car.
Right, Jim Googe was driving, and he pulled in,
Daddy was in the
and
back.
Dad was sleeping in the back. Go ahead, Susan.
And no, that's okay,
So
but
the young boy would assume that was a dead body.
Yeah.
it wasn't
Right.
because Dad opened that
He
door
opened
and
the guy
sat
up.
down and said, Dad had that hello, the deep voice. And it scared the attendant
Well,
to pieces.
What made it worse was Jim Googe told the attendant that he was taking Dad to the state
Yes.
hospital.
Yeah.
So,
They were characters, Dad and Jim
Oh,
I bet they
together.
were.
They were.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
They were.
Yeah. I remember a funny story. Jill and I would play in the when there wasn't a funeral going on, all the caskets were in the funeral home part.
He didn't have a showroom then, and that's why
We had to
They're
move the
tall.
caskets back and forth for
So-
a
You're welcome.
for a
Jill did
funeral.
that.
Through the
Thank you.
But Jill,
with individual lane on it.
Jill and I would get our
Back and forth.
baby dolls
That's the only way
and
to
we would put them in the caskets and we would play funeral.
Oh, play funeral home.
And so instead of playing house,
That's
we
so
played
natural.
play funeral. And I also remember I would take my stuffed animals
Yeah.
out to the funeral home and I'd line them all up and I'd start preaching to them about salvation and stuff that they needed to
Oh, really?
get saved before they died. So I would do that too.
Yeah, I want to not pause, but divert here just a little bit because all of you grew up in the church. And you
Yes.
were members of Faith Church of Christ when it was formed.
right.
Yes.
And I think I read
12.
someplace where Steve Cole
Yes.
buried your grandmother,
Yes.
had that funeral service. And
I
so you all had grew up with God, and I'm
Yes,
sure
yes,
that
we did. I
Yes.
remember the groundbreaking just like yesterday.
of the Faith
Of the
Church.
Faith Church.
Yes.
Yes, Daddy had the one bottom plow and he had the ropes on it, and the whole congregation, we went out there. Paul and Lucy Johnson donated the land.
Yes.
Yes.
We all, grabbed
Hold.
a hold of the ropes. We were all lined up, and I know Dad had a word of prayer and just reminded everybody, don't look back. We're going
Well.
forward.
Yes.
Well,
That's right.
well, he did have a way of looking at things.
Mhm.
and
He did it.
Well, your church was certainly a part of your growing up, and
Absolutely.
did anybody else did that remind you of the story you have?
Well,
Lisa?
I remember Dad telling me one time, as far as the funeral business goes, before when the family would come in to make the funeral arrangements.
Yes.
He told me that before they even got to the arrangement piece, he talked to them about the plan of salvation
Wonderful.
and wanted to make sure everybody knew 100% for sure that when they died they were going to go to heaven.
Wonderful.
And I just thought that was really neat, and that's what he talked to us about growing up
Yes.
in Wambo
So you were taught that. You
from
were
a very
blessed,
young
that's
age.
for sure.
Very
Besides
blessed.
working on cars and roofing the house and running electrical wires and helping with plumbing jobs and
With copper,
yes,
Yes. Okay,
we learned a lot.
Lisa, you haven't told us about you yet. What?
Yes.
Well, I'm Lisa. I'm the third. I'm in the middle. And
We're in the middle.
I'm the middle child of 5. And I was born in Kokomo, and we moved here, according to Mother, when I was probably 6 or 7 months old. The house was
What year were you born?
1962.
Okay, the funeral home, as I read someplace, opened in '64.
But did we moved here in 62 or early 63?
Well, probably because it took him a while to get the
I
place
see
built.
that.
It's- Yeah.
Get everything finished, yes.
Mhm.
Dad had ambulance services from 62 to 1980.
So I,
Yes, well, that
So,
continued,
yeah.
he continued that because the town did not have their own yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he and your mom both being EMTs, they were the ambulance service for Burlington until
they
Burlington
were.
got its own fire department and
Bet.
ambulance service.
Right.
So, you were born in Kokomo, but
So I was
you,
born in Kokomo and then, moved here
Mhm.
after a few months when we moved here to the funeral home. And I went to Burlington Elementary.
yes, now, did you all go to Burlington Elementary?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And some of you to the high school?
All of
Oh,
us
graduated
all
from
of you.
Carroll.
Flora,
Okay.
Burlington
You
Elementary.
went to Carroll or you went to the Burlington High School?
no,
Carol
it was
was
not.
The Burlington High School
Elementary.
was the elementary when we all were going through.
Right.
Yes, and then they
Okay,
added
and
the high
then-
school.
Then we went to Flora for the junior high.
And
then
then-
to Carroll for
Okay,
high school.
okay.
Yeah, okay.
And then in, was it '82, they consolidated the schools and Burlington School closed then. So you all graduated from either Burlington or,
The
We
Burlington,
graduated
From Carroll.
Yeah.
from Carroll.
yeah, we all graduated from
Yeah, okay.
Carroll.
Okay, Lisa, I cut you off, I'm sorry. What else, what have you been doing?
So I moved from Burlington in 1989 to Denver, Colorado.
Yeah.
And I was gone for almost 30 years, just like a month or two shy of 30 years.
How often did you get back to Indiana?
Honestly, it's kind of sad to say, but most of the time I came back for funerals.
Family?
And,
Mhm.
and I came back a few times to visit, but most of the time it was funerals
Right.
and Christmas.
We surprised
Right.
everybody with her for Christmas.
Yes.
One year. It was
I
great.
think I made it back twice for Christmas and
And the rest of you, did you get out to Colorado once in a while?
Carrie and I did,
Good.
with our family.
Jill,
yeah,
And,
Jill did.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Mom and
Jill
Dad
Mom
came
and-
once.
Yes.
Or Mom came with Jill the first time, and then Dad came with Vance Davis, Doug,
Randy.
That's
Yes.
right.
Randy,
Randy.
Davis.
and was it Randy or Doug? Randy. And they just came. They were hunting somewhere in Colorado, and he called me up on the phone and said, "Are you going to be home tomorrow evening?" And I didn't even know they were in Colorado.
Wow.
So they came.
Now tell me about your family.
I was married to Benny Baker for 28 years, and he sadly passed February 26th of 2018. And he had children from a previous marriage, so I have Kyle and I have Jessica. They're my biological children, and then I have an adopted son, Luke. And then my husband had children from a previous marriage, Brenna Shandabo, Misty Brennan Reba, and Daniel.
Whoa.
So there were
So
10.
you raised quite a
Yes.
family.
Mhm.
Yes, yes.
We didn't have them all in the house at the
Yes, all
same
the
time,
time, yes.
because some of them were older,
Mhm.
but we had quite a lot of kids.
Yes, you did. And what did you do? Did you have a career?
I worked 3 years for the state of Colorado, and then I transferred over to the county and got a full-time position, and I worked at the county for 28 years.
Wow, all right.
And I went to Metropolitan State University, and I went to Community College of Denver prior to working for the state, and then I went to the
You were
state.
in civil government most of that
Yes.
time. Interesting.
And I was really too happy to retire.
I'm sure.
I'm telling you, I
I'm
had
sure.
checked out mentally probably 3 years before I had retired. I was ready.
Yes, yes, I'm sure.
And I wasn't planning on retiring when I did, but my husband passed and I
Yeah.
had a little guy at home to take care of.
So that was about 3 years ago, so that's when you moved back to?
Yes, I
Burlington.
went back home.
Yes.
Motherhood came out and Sally and Jill and Mother said, I really think you need to come home and raise Luke in rural Indiana, so.
Yes. And we have learned, we've met Luke and loved him because we've seen him at the American House Breakfast.
Yes.
Which we also enjoyed Joy's biscuits, her homemade biscuits. I tell you, people raved about those biscuits at the
Yes.
American House Breakfast.
She taught me how to make them, but don't ask me how.
Oh,
I made 'em
okay.
one time when she was right there. I thought, oh, this is cool, but I don't remember how.
Well, we've had to start getting him at Gordon Food. They're
Oh, have you?
not quite the same.
So I wanted to tell a story
Yes.
there about
Yes.
my experience with Daddy and the ambulance service. I had two, but one that really is prominent that I remember like it was yesterday was Mother was gone. She was in, I think her and Janice Waddell and some of their friends, they were in Indianapolis for an entire day shopping and doing things, and
That was rare.
we had not, the house wasn't finished yet. I don't think we had built on yet to the house on the north end.
Okay.
Because the garage, the old garage where the showroom is now, was our garage.
Okay.
And I was out in the garage, and this man came running up because the garage door was open. He said, I need your help. Is your dad home? I said, well, he's in the house. He said, well, my wife's having a baby. Well, he had her, she was in the car.
Well,
Okay, so I ran in and I got Dad and I said, there's somebody out in the garage, and he said his wife's having a baby, he needs your help. So we go out there, well, him and I were the only ones home, and we didn't have an answering service at the time. So we had to call somebody to come down, but in the meantime, he had to get this lady loaded up and head to the hospital. I don't know if we were going to Frankfurt Hospital because we went, he got me in the ambulance with him. We went south and he had to pull over. It was either Middle Fork or Michigan Town. And he delivered a baby.
and
Right
you
in the
were there and
ambulance.
witnessed the whole thing?
Well, I was in the front seat,
Uh-huh.
but I was there, yes.
Yes. Oh, my. Oh, what an experience.
And,
And the baby and the mother both did all right?
yeah, they did fine,
And then you took her on to the hospital, I think?
yes.
Uh-huh.
And then another time, I was at home and Dad and I were the only ones home. Mom was up here at the beauty salon. It used to be Jan Crooms, below the
Yes.
Masonic Lodge. And somebody called on the private phone, not the business phone, and I picked it up and answered it. And it was one old lady, and all she said was, I need help. Clunk. Hangs up the phone right. So I went and I told Dad, I don't know, somebody called and they said, I need help, and they hung up on me. And he said, well, I bet you it was Kate Smoker. He said, because I've always told her if she needs anything to call me or if she ever needed any help. So he loaded me up and we
You
got
went
in the
with him?
ambulance. He dropped me off right in the middle of the street at the beauty salon.
Where your mother was?
And then he went up to Kate's house and she had fallen.
And it was Kate?
It was Kate. She had fallen on the floor, but she was able to crawl or scoot herself
Get
over
to the phone that
It was
long.
close enough.
Wow.
Yeah. And I just remember that. And then there was a time when Dad and I were walking in town, and I was really little, and a lady coming out of the post office had walked down to the corner of Cutler Blacktop. She fell right on the street, just
Wow.
fell in the middle, and he he told me, stand here, do not move. And he ran across the street and went over there and started helping her get up.